Good morning. It's Norma Cowie. It's Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock, and it is time for Norma Talks. Last week, I ended up going and talking about the one symbology in the tarot and got a lot of comments from it, actually. And so I wanted to go to the next set, which is the cups, which talks about feelings and emotions. Over the years, I've come to really understand that this is an emotional planet, that a lot of planets in our universe out there is more mental. So when people come here, they're hit with all these feelings and they don't know what to do with them. It's like they want to stay mental, they want to figure it out and sort it out. And unfortunately, we need to really understand because we are in a body, our soul is in a body. And the body talks to us through feelings. Now, this is my conjecture, and you may agree with me, you may not. But what I found was, as the years went by, and I was trying to figure out how everything fitted in and how exactly it all worked, that if I was having a feeling and I addressed it, if I gave it a name, my body would settle down. And in settling down, it gave me much more room to be able to decide what I wanted to do about the feeling, or often nothing, because the body felt heard. And that's how I teach it, is that when you have a feeling, you name it, and the body will feel heard. And when the body feels heard, it backs off because it knows that you've got its message. If you are not listening, if you are refusing to acknowledge the feeling, it builds. Now, feelings are how they come up, but when we resist them, they turn into emotion. And emotion is harder than feelings. Feelings flow in and out like a lot of the time in the day, but emotions become almost like a knot at times inside. And so it's really an important thing, I think, for you to recognize that you are a feeling being. And we want to be more in feelings because it flows easier than emotion. So we will be talking a little bit about feelings and a little bit about emotion, and so that an understanding of how they work. Because I really don't think it's taught I mean, I've taken my psychological courses and things like that, but it's very mentally approached. It's not about feelings, really. It's about, well, this is how you respond to this or that or the other. And so I've done a number of things over the years about that. But it's when it came down to it, I began to realize is that we need to name our feelings. We need to be able to say, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling glad, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that, and let it go. Don't hassle it. Just be aware of that. And you'll know if the right word, if I can use it that way, the correct word, the appropriate word to the feeling is said, because your body will back off. Your body will go, oh, she got it, or he got it, or whatever. So anyway, I'm going to start today with my perhaps one of my favorite. But I was in a conference once, and someone was saying they had no favorite cards, but I do have some favorites, and this is one of mine. Maybe because it applies to the spiritual element, which is where I've always been really, really important on my spirituality and my connection to source, or the love force, as I call it often. Now, if we look at the symbology, and this symbol is like the dove of peace puts the sacrament into the cup of flows. There's a lot of mythology in here. There is the five streams. There is, I used to have all this on my fingertips, the numbers of this and that and the other. But if you have a time, sit down and add all the little lily pads, some with flowers, some with not, the drops of water. It all adds up to saying that the spiritual element, the intake of that loving force makes everything work and makes everything come into being. So when we apply the spirituality, when we apply the philosophy, when we apply everything to our life, we come into this. This is union. This is balance. This is communication between the two parts of you or your counterpart. We do have a male female, even though we have a gender, and that we have them within us. But on this particular symbol, we have the lion with the wings embracing the two, the healing sign, and communication equal. The man is very flowery dressed. The woman is very simply dressed. There are some elements about that, but what this main thing is communication. It could be internal communication. It can be external communication. But the communication between this is healing. We must be able to address how we feel. We must be able to name it. We must be able to communicate it to others if possible, but especially to ourselves. When we are able to do that, then we become happy. Celebration time. 3 beautiful females dancing with their cups raised up. 3 is a creative energy. Remember that. 3 is the love number. 3, because if we go to the higher counter, it's the Empress. 3 is very creative. And we're celebrating. And if you look at what they've got, it's like spring harvest festival. I remember in the churches when I was young, they used to bring all the and we would have a church service around celebrating because of the harvest, all the different vegetables, etc. But this is life, enjoyment. This is what we're here to do, is to be enjoyable. So these first 3, just a sec, I'm just going to have a sip of water here. These first 3 symbols are really how we want to be. We want to embrace the almighty love force, communicate in unity and harmony within and without, and celebrate life. Be happy, be happy. But is that always? No, doesn't work that way. Number four is a very solid number. It's like this is where we get the base. But if you look at the gentleman who's sitting under the tree, he's got his arms crossed, he's got his legs crossed, he's got his 3 cups in front of him, and another one coming. Now, there's another one coming out of the cloud is life. I mean, doesn't life have surprises sometimes? But we get hooked on something. And this often will happen when something is working really, really well in your life. And then it's like we hold on to it. This is it. And we get stuck. We don't realize everything changes. And so consequently, what happens here is you lock down. And I still can't use my other elbow very well. We go from this, where we're happy, to this in front of us where we're shut off. See the 3 symbols? Now we got the 4 being added. This is a common error that we make because we are happy. We want it to stay happy. We want it to be happy. So we hang on. But the reality is there's always new stuff coming in, more ways of coming in and bringing. And the one thing about the 4 I find in the readings that I do is the importance is to let go and embrace the newness, the change, the awareness. When we get affixed on something, actually we shrink it. When we're really like not allowing the universe to work, we get fixated and we go, this is it. And what happens, it actually shrivels up and dies in a sense. And that's number 5. Number 5 is our sad one, depression. First, we've got a couple of dark peoples in here, but number 5, the 3 symbols that we had in the 4, in the 3 and the 4 are now turned over. And we have 2 cups behind. So here we are in grief. There is the river of life. There's a castle of dreams on the other side of the river. But we don't see that. We just see what we've lost. So we're sad. We're depressed. We're upset. What do we do about that? We accept. But anyway, the key here is to turn around and look at what else is being offered. Life doesn't just give you a small dosage. Doesn't just say, here, this is it. It offers, it's like having a plentiful garden if you know how to open up and let in. There's a river of life here. This is the only symbol that has a bridge over the river of life to the castle of dreams, but you got to turn around. You have to let go of the disappointment. You have to let go of what is no longer working. Nothing remains the same. You know that if you go and buy a vegetable at the grocery store and you don't use it, what happens? It shrivels up and dies. Life is like that. Life needs to be continuing to move. Even at my age, you might say, it needs movement. It needs change. It needs growth. It needs progress. And so Yeah, the five comes up a lot for people because they've lost and sad things happen. We go from being happy. When you think of it, a number three, we're all here, all happy. Now then they're on the ground and then they're falling over. They've gone. And the key is turn around and look. So even though it's probably one of the hardest symbols, because halfway through the 10, it's actually the most significant, because what happens, lot I was going to say shit happens, and it does. Things happen. We look like we're sitting pretty one moment and then it's not. You have a life and then you have lockdowns. You have a thing happening and then you can't communicate. All that, like, know when anything's going. So how do we let go? We got to let go, and we got to work with what we're doing. Well, I wouldn't be sitting here doing these shows, which I dearly love now, if lockdowns hadn't happened. There's always a plus, but we got to look for it. We got to turn around and look. What are we going to do now instead of being overwhelmed? It brings back a picture when I was in Hawaii, swimming in this, and I did a lot of water surfing, like body surfing, when in New Zealand as a kid. And I thought, I can do this. And this thing, I found out later, a lot of nicks were broken on this thing. Anyway, the next thing I knew, I was tumbling around in the water. I didn't know which way was up or which way was down. The water just hit me onto the sand underneath. And I was like, oh my gosh, scrambling to find my foot to get out of the water. That's life. What happens? Like, I was not expecting it. And yeah, it was a little messed up a bit, but anyway, it was like letting go. And this is where we have the 6. 6 is always a number I often find has a lot to do with responsibility and family and work and family and responsibility. Here we have two strange looking people. Actually, they kind of like little hobbits or whatever, and one has the cup. And they've got flowers. They got nurtured. Time has nurtured them. They're inside a castle, so they're safe. And the one of them is presenting the cup to the other one, who's got gloves. Now, I always find on here that the gloves are very significant, because what do we do with memories? This is like memories. This is like the past. What do we do with memories? We treat them with good gloves. With kid gloves, sorry. We have our memory banks, and we have all the dark stuff. We have and hopefully the good stuff outlays the dark stuff. Some people don't. Some people live in depression, and that's because they take everything heavy and they don't let go. I've been there, so I know what that's like, and it's really coming to turn to accept this is how it is. Now, what are you going to do about it? Kind of thing. You get a little bit of tough love in there on yourself. But this one here is about how we deal with the sadness, with the past, and recognize there's only where we are now is where we're at, and where do we want to go from here. So it's like putting the past in perspective. We all have past. Anyone who's listening to this has had a life. You have a past. If you're going to be sad over, and then there's some things we're sad, like, parents pass on, sisters pass on, daughters pass on. There's a sadness, yes, but there's an acceptance of that sadness of moving on, because you're not completed yet. You're not finished this go around. As a reincarnationalist, that's part of the conversation on that. And it's like, yeah, there's so much little symbology in here. I just want to point out this one little cup down here, the flower kind of turns in, because it's like some things we don't want to remember. They're hurtful, but it's better to look at it squarely, brace it, accept it, let it go, because every day you wake up is a new day, and many things can change in that new day. You can change your perspective like that. Now then, from the 6, we go into the 7. Now, 7 is the imagination symbol. Look at this. 7 cups up in the air, all in clouds, all great. Some of them great things, some of them not so great things. But the castle of dreams, the laurel wreath of victory where you win, but there's also a little dragon there. The subconscious mind coming up. There's healing, there's vanity, there's anything you want, it's all there. And so, but you'll notice he's dressed in black, the same as number 5. These two are black bearings. Being emotional beings is not easy, especially when we're not trained. We're trained to be mental in our society. We're trained to think logically. Now, if you're a person like me who doesn't always think logically because I think outside of the box, that often wasn't workable. Then I try and be mentally proficient, and I do have a good. I think that's the right brain, isn't it? That's logical. I do have a good logical brain, thank goodness. Not as good as some for sure, but it works. And so I'm not just an all emotional person. Some people are just totally emotional. That can be very difficult sometimes because it's hard to be rational when you're all emotional. But at the same point, when we look here, we don't want to get carried away. This is the imagination out of control. What about this and what about that? And I'm going to have this and I'm going to have that. Nothing based in reality. There's no reality in this. And very often, what we find, as we'll find when we get to the court cards, is a court card that supports this. And the imagination pattern is very fast and very furious and very dangerous, as far as I'm concerned, because we want to stay in a reality of where you're at. So when we get to number 8, magical number 8, balance of all things, we've gone through this stage of, the what ifs and maybes and perhaps and well, this will happen and that'll happen, all the excitement that can bring. But remember, he's got a black, he's sitting in his imagination, not reality. We come to number 8. And if you look at the 8 cups right up front, 5 and 3 make 8. 3 happy, 5 sad. That's our past. We've had great times. We've had sad times. We've had sometimes that really great, but now it's time to leave the imagination, get our strength. This man is leaving. The river of life has got a few rocks in the river. He's got a staff in his hand, which we could go back to the hermit. We're holding the staff, so he's got support, and he's turning his back on the past, which is in the front of the symbol, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you might say, and he's moving off. He, she, it's like a man, but it's, he, she, moving off, and the sun, moon on the front of the sky is double. There's the sun with the moon behind it. So who knows where he's heading, but he's heading off. He's leaving behind what has gone before in an emotional way. He's leaving that behind as he moves forward. We need to change. We can't stay in our imagination. We can't stay in our grief. We've got to move on. And so as we move on, we move into number 9. One thing I love about number 9, because it always feels so good after this, wreck of an emotional journey going up and down and in and out, is he sits there very portly, feet planted firmly on the ground, arms folded, though. There's always a little bit of a hesitancy about arms folding because you shut energy off. But behind him, he has 9 cups. This is my life. This is where I'm at. And sometimes this is a satisfaction feeling. Like here, I've achieved, I've created, I've done, it's workable. And it's a nice stage. And then we come to 10. Now, I want to draw a little bit of a parallel here. I'm going to pull that symbol up as well. Number 10, look at this. Rainbow full of 10 cups. A couple, very happy, 2 children dancing, their house, the river, everything is there. Now, here's the communication in the beginning at number 2. The healing, the communication, the coming together. There's a similarity in the backgrounds. But here we have full contentment, happiness, everything in its right, I'm going to say right place. Everything meaning happy, happy, happy. But if you'll notice here, what is it really saying through this is that emotion is transient. Feelings happen. And as I consistently say this to clients when I used to be a lot of speaking out there, but even here I do too. When you have a feeling that comes up, if you can name it, the body feels heard. The body feels heard. And sometimes, what we feel is not comfortable. Don't run away from it. Name it. And the thing is, it doesn't matter what name you put to it because the body will feel heard. It's your body. It wants you to know this is how it feels about this. The miracle thing about it is it just dissipates, and it does dissipate. Whether it's frustration, whether it's sadness, whether it's hurt, whether it's pain, whether it's disappointment, whatever, just name it and allow the energy of the Ace of Cups. Know that you are supported by the divine, know that you are supported. And so, yes, this compared to the wands, which kind of wanders through kind of I can't always say that word, a journey going through. And so consequently here, you're a little bit all over the place, but that's what emotion does. That's what feeling does. But what we don't want it to do is become emotion, because then it's harder, it's bigger, it's stronger. That's when we get really depressed. That's when we get really sad. That's when we begin to lose that knowingness of the Ace of Cups, that we are supported in our lives, that we are loved for who we are. So that all works through there, because we want to be in this happy state as much as possible. And sometimes it's not there. But anyway, let's go look at the court cards for a moment. And I'll have another drink of water. Wow, I took a big gulp. That didn't go down too well. The court cards to me are your attitudes. They are your beliefs coming through as how you act or react the most often. The page, now there's a couple of things I want you probably can't see here, but there are water lilies. Remember, oh, sorry, I didn't mention that cups relate to the element of water, because the emotion is water, is movement, change. But he's got water lilies on his tunics that are not really open, but they're there. So always in the cup symbology and the court cards, we've got water relating to water. He's looking at his cup. Unfortunately, I can't use that other hand yet. He's looking at his cup, and a fish is coming out of it. Now, what is a fish? Now, in Christian terms, it was a Christianity thing, but it's a prize. A surprise is happening. It's like, oh my goodness, look at this. I've got a fish. Whoops, sorry. I got carried away. Yes, life is full of surprises, and the fish is like, it's got his mouth kind of open, like it's going, hello. And so again, this speaks to being able to deal with the feelings that come up and the surprises life brings often. How do we respond to that? That's the key. How do we respond when we have a surprise? Because let's face it, there's always a new surprise coming somewhere. Now, one of my favorite nights is this one. It's the Knight of Cups. And I'll tell you why. Because the horse is walking. In the night, the horse is significant in the speed or the reaction as to how things happen. So he's walking slowly. The fish are on his tunic, all lined up in the direction he's going in. So he's on the right track. He's a knight, so he's got he's got the wings of Mercury on his head, so he does do his thinking. He is aware, and he's got his cup in front of him. If I remember rightly, yes, it's in the right hand, so he's in command, because the left's a little bit more emotional. So he's got command of his emotions, moving forward. The river of life is before him, as a little stream down here, but he's very much in command, and he's just walking forward to where he's going. He will get to where he's going this night, because he's going slow, he's going carefully, he's going in the direction, no, not too carefully, but you know what I mean. And he's using his head as well. Everything is moving in the direction that he wants to move. So to me, I like to see that around for my clients and even for myself. Now, big breath, Queen. Total opposite. She sits on her throne, which is got a dressings of baby mermaids. That's significant. In her throne, that's here right by the water's edge, is a picture of I think it's a baby angel with a fish. It's all frozen in the haircut and everything. Got babies around. It's a very, nice. It looks nice, but also, she sits there looking at her cup. And if you look at the cup, I'm going to bring it close. It's got a lid on it. She's lost into her imagination. Remember the 7? I'll just show you the 7 again. Imagination gone crazy. Now it's an attitude. You don't see things as they are. You see them as you want them to see. The water, the river, it's like a lake or a river is right there by her feet, and one of her toes very close to touching it. But it's got a lot of water symbology in this one. The cloak looks very watery. The scallop at the top of her throne, we'll say call it a throne or a seat that she's sitting. But the major thing here is the top that's on her cup and the fancifulness. It's got handles. It's got, so in other words, how often do we look at life and we dress it up instead of accepting the reality of it? Sometimes we have to be down and look at the total reality of what is happening, what is going on here. Big breath. Those are not easy times, but when you have an attitude like this has a lot to do with your belief. Attitudes have a lot to do with your belief systems. These are your habits. This is what you do the most often. If you are a 7 of cups and a queen of cups, maybe tucked in there is also a 5 of cups as well. You're stuck. You're stuck, really, basically. And you need transformation work like I do, because you can get stuck so easily, locked in your own mind of how it's supposed to be and why isn't it like that. So it's like being stuck, creating the imagination. The mind needs to work. Yes, we're not denying the mind. That's really important. It sets your framework, as I say. Wands put the framework, the cups put fill in the framework. So it's like that she's just so stuck. And then we come to the king, and he's on his water, but very heavy, but his concrete throne walks on the sea. I just want to look. It's very turbulent, the sea. It's kind of very rough a little bit, but it's solid. He's got his cup in his right hand and a scepter in his left. He looks out. I've always found this symbol when I was working and trying to figure out where they were very cold. Very much like, well, this is how it is. And this is an emotional king. So I wouldn't say he's not aware of his feelings. I'm just not sure what he does with them sometimes. Very much probably, this is how it is. I find him a little cold, personally, even when I'm reading from, but depending on what other symbols are around, of course. And on the background of this is a fish coming out of nowhere, which fishes surprises. Remember in the page, the fish comes out of the cup, the surprise, the unexpected. And he's very much in command. Around his neck is a fish amulet too. So it's like he's got command over his emotions, except the sea is rough. And although kings tend to be in control of whatever, and he is in control, I just don't know that he's happy. His eyes are looking backwards. It's like he's driven by the past a lot. There's a lot in these cup symbology, and it's not an easy read in the sense like, oh, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's like we go here, we go there, we go everywhere. And isn't that like emotion? Isn't that like feelings? We can be feeling great one minute and terrible the next. We can be feeling all over the place. Now, my empathy goes to people who's very much feeling all over the place, because sometimes to get hold of that and have that work for you in an effective way so that you can move in the direction that you want to go to can be a little bit difficult. But just by understanding the concept that this is an emotional planet, and yes, our thinking creates the outline, but the emotion, the feelings put the color, fill in the wall. Actually, what I do a lot is talk about building a house. The thoughts create the framework of your house. There's your framework. There's your basic belief system right there. The feelings come along and they fill in the walls. So you've got the walls. So, and then of course, when we get to swords, it's how you handle all the things that come up. But we can't get away that we're with being non-feeling beings. And I find a lot of people don't want to feel because it hurts. But if you breathe into the hurt, like in that 5, if you accept that and just realize, put it behind you, it's done, and move forward, put it into the memory banks of all time. Like it's, you don't lose your memories. They're there, but you don't have to hang out in them if they make you sad. You take a breath and you go, where am I going from here? So the big things within the cup symbology is between 4, when you start getting stuck, 5, when you're starting to get depressed, 6, you work at trying to put things in perspective, and that's a plus. But then your imagination can take over, and it's about leaving it all behind. The pluses, the minuses. Every day is a new day. Today is the first day for the rest of my life. Do you remember that saying? That was a big saying way back a number of years ago. Today is the first day for the rest of my life. What does that mean? It means today you begin to think, you begin to feel where you're at and where you're going. The one thing you know, tomorrow will come. Yesterday's gone. And sometimes we just have to put a line in the sand. I've had to do this a couple of times in my life where I've just had to draw a line in the sand and just say, okay, today is the first day of the rest of my life, and every day is the first day of the rest of my life. Some days are good days, some days not so good, but always moving forward, always knowing that that Ace of Cups, that the universal love force is there for me and has my back, and I don't have to look backwards. Sometimes I do. I go reminisce, and that's where I move into self-forgiveness, forgive myself, or there I jumped into the table again. Sorry, guys. I do get excited. I am an excitable person. Try not to be sometimes, but I am. So I really feel strongly about understanding how these emotional symbols work, how we take care of them, and realize they're not our enemy. They're our body trying to tell us something. The body is saying, hey, smarten up. Hey, be aware of this. Hey, look at that. And know that your attitudes, actually, in this one, the Knight of Cups is my favorite attitude, because no matter what, you're going to move ahead and you're going to get to where you're going and what you're going to do. So that is the cup symbology. And as you can see, motion, like feelings and emotions, it's not a straight line. Very much when we're thinking, it very much goes A, B, C, D, E, F, but cups don't, because feelings don't. They're like water. They'll go sometimes like a pool, sometimes like a well, sometimes. And the key is for us to be open to those feelings that our body is telling us, and not fall into our habits of either getting overwhelmed or rejecting or pretending, but rather just going forward. So this is where goals come in, but that'll come out more in the swords and in the pentacles. But I just trust that you will have, as I put all these back together here down my table, that you have a great day, a great week. I want to thank you all for your support, for your thumbs up, for your subscribe. Those of you that are subscribe, I appreciate you. Comments, I appreciate. Makes my day. It really does. Find out what people are wanting. Let me know what you want to hear about. Because I'm sitting here every week going, oh, what are we going to talk about today? And so when somebody sends me a lot of questions and I can make it into a program, I want to thank that. I just want to thank anybody who does that, because I know, I know a lot, because, well, my perception. I might say I have a different perception than most people, mainly because I just didn't take what everybody said as face value. I went and did my own inner research. I asked my guides. I looked at my tarot. I looked at other things that I was studying and looking and figuring out. I wanted to figure out myself first, but how we all fit together in the big picture. And I like to believe that I found that. I found it. But I feel like sometimes a lonely voice because most people are going to sort of have a main trajectory, and it's like, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's how it works. So I really appreciate you hanging in there and watching and listening and sending your comments, etc. And I will be back Sunday for my little Sunday thought. You take care, enjoy, have a great life. Bye for now.